Welcome to another story made by Oracle 1. The polar night was relentless, the endless darkness swallowing every flicker of hope on the sprawling ice fields of the Arctic. The Arctic Rescue Unit had been dispatched to find the missing research team from the Magnuson Institute, a group of climatologists studying the rapidly shifting ice shelves as the world's temperatures climbed to unprecedented heights. The ice was treacherous, the wind a howl that threatened to strip the very flesh from their bones, but the team pressed forward, led by Captain Evelyn Reese. It was the middle of February, and the sun had been absent from the sky for nearly 2 months. Temperatures dipped to absurd lows, the ice beneath their boots cracking and groaning like a wounded beast. The dim, pale auroras flickered faintly overhead as the team trudged through the blizzard. Evelyn was keenly aware that time was against them. The last contact from the Magnuson team was a faint distress signal captured 2 days earlier before it abruptly cut off. When they arrived at the coordinates, there was only remnants of a camp, scattered scientific equipment, frozen footprints leading nowhere, and then, a strange carving on the ice wall of a glacial crevasse. The carving was unmistakable, precise, deliberate letters, etched deep into the frozen wall. On a closer look, it read, "Find me when the year is 2042. I am waiting." The message made little sense. The current year was 2028. Who would carve a note decades ahead into ice? A substance mutable over time as glaciers shifted and melted. It reeked of paradox and prescience. Something about it disturbed Evelyn. She pulled out her tablet to log the coordinates and the strangeness of the message. "Captain," said Dr. Neil Farrow, the unit's cryptographer-analyst, squinting through the frosted lens of his goggles. "I ran the message through our databases and any known languages or codes. It's in English, straightforward enough, but you're right, the date is a future one. Obviously it's either a hoax, or some kind of bizarre warning." Evelyn's gut told her there was more to it. The Magnuson team would never plant a prank like this. They were meticulous scientists, not thrill-seekers. She ordered a thorough search of the subordinate crevasse, convinced that the message was meant to lead somewhere. The team found a cavern inside the glacier, illuminated only by the glow of their headlamps. The walls shimmered translucent blue, warped and shifting as the ice groaned slowly. It was a natural frozen palace, but deep inside, there was a second message, etched into a glassy ice formation. "The future is written in the past's coldest breath." Beneath it lay a small podium fashioned of ice blocks, on which was balanced a device, cold to the touch and entirely alien in design. It looked like a fragment of a small machine, metallic and blackened, almost like a piece of advanced computer hardware abandoned for centuries. "Whatever this is," said Neil, "it doesn't belong to any tech we have, or I'm familiar with from any archives. It's not even from our current century. But how did it get here, and why? And why leave this message decades before it makes sense?" The deeper they looked, the more anomalies they found. The ice beneath their feet was unnaturally clear, almost like glass, revealing bright layers and pause points reminiscent of dendrochronology. But for ice, the frozen history of seasons trapped in its matrix. Captain Reese's communicator crackled. "Base, this is Scorpio team. We have an update. You need to see this." The team's lead environmental scientist, Mira Ito, just had unearthed something buried near the ice floor. It was a small, rectangular box, micro-etched with fine runes on its matte surface. When they pried it open carefully, inside was a notebook. But instead of ink or paper, it was a digital device that projected holographic images when activated. Touching its surface revealed a projected figure of a young woman in a lab coat. "If you are seeing this," the hologram said, "welcome to the year 2042. My name is Dr. Lena York, and I am not yet born in your time. I built this message to reach across the years because something unimaginable is coming, A threat tied to the melting glaciers, something that will change all of us. The rescue team froze, disbelief mixing with awe. A person speaking from the future? It sounded impossible, more legend than fact, but here was the evidence in ice and data. Lena explained that she was part of a future generation born into a world ravaged by the acceleration of climate collapse and unchecked scientific experimentation. In 2042, her world was fighting a desperate battle against an unknown enemy that had emerged from beneath the shifting ice, an ancient, sentient force, partly organic, partly synthetic, that had been awakened by early explorations. The message was urgent. In her time, the glaciers were melting to reveal artifacts and data archives left behind millennia ago. Artifacts of a lost civilization that had transcended humanity but paid a terrible price through their ambitions. Lena believed that the Magnuson team had stumbled upon initial traces of this ancient technology and had been taken by its influence, lost in time and space. The hologram flickered as Lena urged this rescue team to locate another key site deeper in the glacier. A place called the core, where the frozen consciousness of that ancient entity lay dormant but aware. If awakened fully, it could wipe out all life on Earth in a catastrophic chain reaction. Only by finding the core and disabling its power source could the disaster be averted, in any timeline. Evelyn's mind reeled with the possibilities. Had the Magnuson team been abducted or vanished because of this entity? Was their disappearance a direct consequence of this ancient intelligence? The line between reality and nightmare had blurred, but there was no turning back. The rescue mission had changed into something far greater, a race to save not just the missing scientists but the destiny of humanity itself. The unit followed the coordinates Lena's message detailed. The glacier's heart was an ice cathedral of impossible scale, twisting tunnels of crystalline perfection, lined with strange pulsating veins of opaque blue ice. As they descended deeper, Evelyn noticed patterns within the ice that resembled neuronetworks, the veins resembling faintly a human brain's intricate architecture. Suddenly, the ice beneath them trembled, and a low rumble echoed through the cavern. The ancient entity within was stirring. "Keep moving," Evelyn shouted as a shard of ice collapsed just steps ahead. They navigated the falling debris with careful precision, heartbeats pounding like tribal drums in the silence. They arrived at a vast chamber known as the core. It was surreal. A frozen sarcophagus suspended midair, glowing faintly with a sickly greenish light. Within it was the vague outline of an immense, amorphous shape, half machine, half living organism, contained in a prison of ice and data matrices. The entity pulsed slowly, neural tendrils stretching towards the ceiling, connected to crystalline arrays overhead like a hive queen in her lair. Mira deployed a device Lena had specified, an ice calculation disruptor designed to freeze the entity's neural pathways into permanent suspension. The machine whirred uncertainly as data flowed around their heads in 3D projections, depicting the timeline and probable futures. The entity was evolving rapidly, learning, adapting, trying to break free. As the calibration began, a voice echoed, deep, ethereal, artificial yet somehow human. It was the entity communicating telepathically, its words slamming into their minds. "Why do you trespass in my prison? I am the memory of a forgotten age, the synthesis of dreams and nightmares. Release me, and behold your salvation or your end." Evelyn and her team struggled against the mental tide, focusing on the device. The entity's power was overwhelming, but their resolve was stronger. With a final pulse, the disruptor activated, sending a cascade of cold energy that settled over the core like an electric frost. The entity shuddered but was locked again, frozen in infinite stasis. Relief washed over the team as the ice cathedral around them seemed to calm, the tremors ceasing. They had stopped a calamity centuries, or decades, in the making. Lena's message, carved into the ice before her birth, had bridged time itself to save millions yet unborn. The return to base was slow, the Arctic night remaining as cruel as ever. But in their minds was the strange miracle of fate intertwined with the future's warning. The rescue mission was no longer just about lost scientists. It was about protecting the fragile thread of human existence from forces buried deep in the frozen past and whispered by a future that might yet be. Evelyn looked once more at the message carved in ice, the scribed promise of another time, an impossible connection stretched thin across infinity. They had come for answers and found a mystery older, wider, and colder than any of them could have imagined. For more stories, like and subscribe.